Today officially marks 1 year since Palworld first launched, and despite some bumps in the road, the game is still alive and thriving. So what better way to celebrate Palworld's birthday than to see just how far we've come? When the game first released, I had come up with a list of things that I had hoped to see in future updates. Unfortunately though, I never finished that video due to burnout. But now seems like the perfect time to finally revisit that list and see just how much has changed over the course of a year, and talk about what we'd like to see in the future. Starting with the pals. I think there was never any doubt that Pocket was going to add more pals to the game, but the question was always how many and what kind. Palworld has come quite a long way with its pals, starting with 137 at launch, and now peaking at 187. That's 50 new pals in just 1 year of early access. That's pretty good, and some of these new pals are actually pretty awesome. Now back when I made my list, I didn't just want more pals, I wanted more types of pals. I was always pretty confident they'd add more, but what I really wanted was more diversity, especially with aquatic pals, including possibly even underwater ones. Just imagine how interesting it would be for the oceans around Papagos Islands to be sprawling with aquatic life. That would be pretty sick, but I get that adding an entirely new underwater system to the game would be a huge undertaking. That said, they haven't added too many aquatic pals, but who knows what we'll see in future updates. Now along with more types of pals, I also wanted to see more pal variants. And what I mean by variant is any type of pal with some kind of alternate version. Think like Joltog and Joltog Christ. They've added a decent amount more of these, but that's not the only kind of variant I'd love to see more of. Take Gamos, for example. It has a semi-rare variation of it that has a small flower on top of its head rather than just the typical leaves. Imagine if more pals had little details like that, or if they gave each gender of pal a unique look. Like maybe a female Cinnamoth has a different coloration to a male Cinnamoth. Adding this kind of variety would make the game feel even richer and more dynamic than it already is. Moving on from the pals themselves for a second, something I really wanted to see was the addition of more pal moves. When Palworld first released, there surprisingly wasn't a whole lot of different moves pals could use, and funnily enough, water-type moves actually had the least, at 5 moves total at launch. However, they have since added way more moves, essentially doubling, maybe even tripling the amount that was available before. I have hundreds of hours in this game, and I still get hit with moves I've never seen before. It's crazy. Okay, so next on my list of wants was loadouts, but I think a better name for this would be pal teams. Essentially, you create a team of 5 pals, give the team a name, and then you can use that team whenever you want to use them. It would be as easy as just selecting a team, and you're good to go. Now they didn't add this, but just imagine how convenient it would be if they did in a future update. And speaking of convenient things that they should add but haven't, dedicated glider pal slots. I know I can't speak for everyone here, but I almost never use glider type pals. I just don't like any of them enough to replace a whole pal on my team. But what if rather than a slot for just gliders, you could instead slot a pal here as a dedicated glider? It would literally be game changing. So many more people would use the glider feature with this. I know I would. Alright, what's next on my list? Yes, more pal bases. I think this was probably the most talked about change that I had seen when the game first came out. 3 bases per guild was just not cutting it for the majority of the player base. And originally, I was thinking even just 4 or 5 bases would be plenty for the game. But they decided to go all out and make it so that you can actually choose how many bases you want in the settings. Like, that's perfect. The only complaint I could come up with about this is the size of each base. Each individual base, in my opinion, is maybe a little too small. But with the ability to make as many bases as you want, this really isn't that big an issue. I guess they could add a setting to make it bigger or smaller, but I think it's probably fine. I think possibly my favorite improvement to Palworld's base building is the inclusion of the guild chest at level 40. This allows resources stored inside to be accessible from all bases, assuming each base has one. This means resources can finally be shared across different bases. They also added this, which is pretty cool, the item retrieval machine, which lets you store and pull items from every chest in your base all in one place. Super helpful. Makes finding and storing items in your base so much easier. Honestly, they've made a lot of improvements to bases and base building in general. There's a lot more things you can build, they made structures for gathering better resources, you can change PAL's resource gathering preferences and assign jobs easier, you can now apply filters to different chests, there's booths for selling items to other players, there's a slider for crafting items, there's way more sorting options in the PAL box as well as the ability to favorite certain PALs, they made the PAL box storage size way bigger, and just lots of other stuff that are all huge improvements from where the game started. Shoot, PALs don't even get stuck as often as they used to. It's really come a long way. The only things from my original list for base building that weren't added were the ability to paint base structures like you can in the game Raft, and the ability to move a chest instead of destroying it, which would be amazing. I hate having to transfer everything the hard way. But enough about bases. Let's talk about the map and exploration. Here's what the map looked like at launch, and here's what it looks like 1 year later. As you can see, they've added 2 new major locations to the map. Sakurajima, which is a pretty decently sized island, and Feybreak, which is huge. It's like its own little continent down here. Regardless of the size difference, they both offer their own unique landmarks, NPCs, PALs, and environments. And I'd say that these are pretty amazing additions to the map. I mean, it was already huge to begin with, but this just adds even more for you to explore. However, I think there's definitely a lot more that could be done to make it even better. For example, while the environment of the game is gorgeous, there really isn't all that much to the world at the moment. It's big, don't get me wrong, but I think it could really do with more villages, cities, or really just anything of that nature. Just imagine how dope it would be if there was a big, sprawling city filled with interactable NPCs and PALs. Not only would it be awesome, but I think it would be really interesting to see more of how PALs really fit into the world alongside humans. Another idea that I thought could be interesting was the option to procedurally generate maps, or to have multiple maps kind of like Ark Survival Evolved does. But if they just keep making Papagos Islands bigger, I don't think it'll be necessary. But those are other options they could explore. I honestly can't wait to see just how big the map becomes by full release. Last but not least, I just have a couple of miscellaneous ideas left. The big one that I'm sure 99% of Palworld players can agree on is the improvement of AI pathing. Listen, it's no secret that AI pathing in Palworld is a little janky, though they have improved on it a lot already. PALs can pretty reliably function in the base now. Unfortunately though, PALs can still get stuck in and around the base, so there's still some work that can be done to make this even better. Plus, the new system for summoning PALs can cause some unwanted issues. Thanks, Nintendo. Speaking of Nintendo, I think we also have them to thank for the PAL deck being renamed to the Palpedia. It's not a bad change, and honestly not a huge deal, but interesting nonetheless. Oh, and speaking of the PAL deck, there's 2 changes that I really wanted them to add that I still think would be some nice quality of life changes. Number 1, I think they should add a search bar to the PAL deck. Unless you have all the PALs and their numbers memorized like I do, it can be a bit of a pain searching through to find whatever PALs you need. And number 2, I would love it if they added an indicator to show how much of a certain PAL you currently have, which might not seem that helpful, but when trying to condense PALs to the highest level, it would be super convenient to check how many PALs you have before you check the condenser. Just 2 minor changes that could go a long way. This next one's a bit of a double whammy: costumes and cosmetic slots for costumes. Palworld has added a number of interesting costumes and hats that you as a player can wear. Unfortunately, as you progress through the game, these hats and costumes just don't really cut it when you're up against high-level PALs. Thus, what cosmetic slots would do is allow you to wear any costume or hat over your armor, but you'd still get the defense of whatever armor you're wearing. Meaning you could look however you want, and not suffer defensively because of it. I think the only customization thing I could want besides that is maybe like the ability to customize the color of your HUD and other interfaces, but I think it really wouldn't be that interesting. Could be cool though, I guess. And now for the very last thing on my list, which I never actually thought they would add: a PAL randomizer. This is my absolute favorite thing they've added to the game since its launch. Being able to randomize PALs by region or completely randomize them totally changes up the normal gameplay loop, which I personally think makes the game way more fun. I tried doing a hardcore challenge of this on completely random, and it's like playing an entirely different game. It's such a good addition to Palworld. And that's it. That's the end of everything that was on my list. It's awesome to see how much of it got added to the game in just one short year. And that's not even everything they've added. They've also added meteors, supply drops, NPC mini-bosses, nest encounters, raid bosses, more weapons and technology, oil rigs, the list just goes on and on. I think it's fair to say that it's been an incredible year for Palworld. Despite the challenges and controversies, the game has not only survived, but thrived, evolving in ways that I could only dream of when it first launched. From a steadily growing roster of pals to improvements in bases, exploration, and quality of life features, it's clear that Pocket Bear has been listening to the community and putting in the work to make Palworld a truly unique experience. While there are still areas for improvement, the progress over the past year is undeniable, and it leaves me excited for what the future holds. Whether it's new features, bigger maps, or even more ways to customize and play, the potential for Palworld feels endless. Here's to another year of growth, innovation, and of course, pals. Thank you for joining me on this journey down memory lane. If you've enjoyed this look at Palworld's evolution, let me know what changes or features you're hoping to see next in the comments. Until then, catch you next time.